Councillors, officers, members of the staff and the public gallery. I'd like to welcome you tonight to the council meeting of the 31st of January 2024. I declare the meeting opened at 5:41. Apologies. The City of Busselton acknowledges the Wadandi and Bibleman people as the traditional custodians of this region and pays our respects to the elders past and present. This meeting is being audio recorded for minute-taking purposes and is also being live-streamed on the City Busselton YouTube channel. And due to some sound issues, I would ask that everyone make sure they use their microphone when talking tonight. Thank you. The prayer this evening will be read by Pastor Lee Sykes from the Cornerstone Church. Welcome, Pastor.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors. And at the start of the year, just on behalf of all the pastors and reverends and churches, just wanted to give a greeting to you all and offer our support for the year ahead.
Thank you.
Let's pray. Father, we do thank you, as always, for this beautiful area in which we live, and we do thank you also for these people who serve us on council. And Lord, we pray for your strength, your wisdom, Lord, your vision, and Lord, your grace. All the attributes that you have, Lord, would be theirs tonight and this year as they serve us, as they make decisions. Lord, we continue to pray that our city and our region would continue to be safe, enjoyable for all, Lord, and continue to be this place of beauty and rest and refreshment that we all enjoy. So we offer these prayers to you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate that. And you're welcome to stay, or you may leave if you would. Yeah, it might be a long one tonight. So we have full attendance of councillors tonight. Thank you all for attending. We have no apologies for this evening, and we have no leave of absence. We've received an application for leave of absence from Councillor Gerard Kennedy for the ordinary council meeting being held on the 21st of February 2024. Do I have a mover to approve Councillor Kennedy's leave of absence? Councillor Kay. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Love. Is there any opposition? Not. I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 9-0. Thank you. Just announcements from myself. On Monday evening, the City held its 2024 annual general meeting of electors, where the annual report, inclusive of the financial report for 22-23, were presented. I also had the privilege to welcome our newest Australians at the citizenship ceremony last Friday. And congratulations to our 41 new citizens. Pleased to have them in the City of Busselton as a new home. I'd also like to extend thanks to the Rotary Club of Busselton Geograph Bay and the Dunsborough Districts Progress Association for hosting a fantastic celebrations on Australia Day in both Busselton and Dunsborough. On Australia Day, we also recognised and celebrated some individuals who made an outstanding and worthy contribution to our community, and I'd like to congratulate our Community Citizen of the Year award winners, Carol Smith, Caitlin Butler, Jenny Monson. Congratulations to all of our nominees, and certainly had some worthy nominations this year, which put forward by some of the councillors as well. Finally, I'd like to congratulate Jackie Happ, Rick Witch, Trevor Fisher and Dillies Forrest, who were recognised for their remarkable commitment to the community and the service which they were awarded the Order of Australia medal. So for 4 people from Busselton, that's City of Busselton, is quite something. And thank you all who provided such dedicated service to our wonderful community. So I have no disclosures of interest or impartiality. I'll move on to item 5.1, which is the confirmation of receipts of the minutes. So the motion that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 13th of December 2023 be confirmed as a true and correct record. Do I have a mover for that? Moved Councillor Cagg. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kennedy. Is there any opposition? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Public time questions. I've got response to previous questions taken on notice. We had 2 questions that were taken on notice on the December 23 meeting, the responses of which have been circulated and now displayed on the screen for you. We now move on to questions time for the public. We've received 3 bookings for public question time. We'll ask each person to come up and order the bookings, and please note the questions will be limited to 3 questions per person where time permits, and we will invite other members of the public who wish to ask questions afterwards to come forward. First booking was from Susan Willits. Susan, if you'd like to just state your name and your suburb, if you could. Thank you.
Susan Willits, Geograph.
Sorry, can we have the microphone on? Sorry. Thank you very much. So if you can do that again.
Susan Willits, Geograph.
Thank you very much, Susan. And your question?
I'm basically introducing myself to you. I live on Estuary View Drive. I've lived there for 2 years, and I'm here today to address a concern regarding the effect of the stench from the estuary and what it's having on the mental health of the residents residing in and around the estuary. I've spoken to my neighbours, and it's evident that the prolonged stress of putting up with this problem year in, year out is taking its toll. I intend to gather data and present my findings to the council in the near future as an aid for you to help your ratepayers.
Susan, unfortunately this is questions of council, so you can present at another session, but what is the question you have for council?
Well, the question I'm having is what's being done about the awful smell that's been there for over 2 months now. And we can't go outside of our house, can't go in the garden.
Sure.
So it's a simple question, what's being done?
Sure, thank you.
Thanks, Susan. My understanding is that DWER and the Water Corporation are planning a sediment removal program in or adjacent to Estuary Drive in Wannerup. My understanding from discussing with officers is that DWER have been attempting to implement the program but have been having some problems with attracting appropriate dredging contractors, but that they now have, in partnership with the Water Corp, I believe they're planning to start that dredging in autumn 2024, subject to some Aboriginal approvals. So I believe there are plans in place to do some sediment removal of that section of the estuary. Appreciate that that's not going to address your immediate concerns. I guess in terms of health impacts, the city takes advice from the Department of Health in relation to those, and really acts on the Department of Health advice. We're not in a position to provide health advice ourselves on that.
No, well, I'm really just letting you know that I will be implementing an action plan and gathering names and filled in mental health forms to see what sort of effect it is having on the public.
Thank you, Susan, for bringing this to our attention. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Our second booking is for Vern Bussell. Good afternoon, Vern. We missed you at the electors' meeting.
Thank you. And in view of what you said to the last lady, I hope you can bear with me a little bit. It seems that perhaps I should have been making a presentation, because I have got 3 questions in what I'm about to say, but if people don't know where I'm coming from, it might be rather hard for them to answer the questions.
A small intro, if you could.
Now my name, of course, is Vern Bussell, from Witcher Heights in Walsall, Busselton, farmer, on the healthy, by the way, upper reaches of the Bass River, and formerly a community member of the Lower Bass River Management Advisory Group. So, Mr Mayor, councillors and staff, and all others present, my questions about the now disbanded Lower Bass River Management Advisory Group and the continuing ill health of our seriously degraded Lower Bass River relates to item 16.4 on tonight's meeting agenda. The Lower Bass River Management Group was dissolved without prior notice to the majority of its members at the final meeting of the group on the 1st of May 2023. In their report on the reasons for the sudden closure of its dedicated, knowledgeable, hard-working group, our City of Busselton staff state that one of the primary reasons for dissolving the group was, as stated again in the staff recommendations for this item on tonight's agenda, and I quote, was because the primary objectives of the Lower Bass River Management Advisory Group had been achieved. Now, in the light of the fact that the 4 CEO-appointed community members of the group...
I will ask you now to get to your question. Sorry, Van,
yeah,
but otherwise
right,
you can present another session.
had made it very clear that they weren't happy with the way things were going, I will move, especially in respect to the dredging and the algal blooming. I can't see where their claims are justifiable. So I would like to ask how on earth the media and the staff could claim that the Lower Bass River dredging program for stages 1 and 2 has been successfully completed when the community members...
So your question is, have they been completed successfully? That's the question you're asking?
Yeah, the question I'm asking is, why are they claiming that the dredging and the remedial work on stages 1 and 2 has been successfully completed, when it's quite obvious to anybody with any knowledge at all that that is nowhere near correct?
Thank you, Van.
I guess in response to that, the stages 1 and 2 of the dredging, I guess, have been completed in that they're finished, and the intent was never to remove all sediment from that section or stages 1 and 2 and the sections of the river. We obviously have reported the tonnes of dry sediment removal, which is, I guess, one of the ways of measuring the outcomes of each of those stages. But I think, as officers have indicated in the reporting, we really need to measure the success of those stages through water quality monitoring, which we have set up with DWER. And Council has already committed to the fact that it will need to review the effectiveness of stages 1, 2 and 3 before it proceeds with any further sediment removal. So it's acknowledged that that effectiveness of that sediment removal still needs to be more fully assessed, and that will happen at the end of stage 3. So I think what officers are suggesting is that the stages of sediment removal have been completed, that from officers' point of view it's had some success, but ultimately that needs to be measured further down the track with water quality measurements.
Can I just ask, are you personally aware that when the dredging was carried out by Apex and Envirocare, that they only actually worked on half of stage 1 and half of stage 2? So the other halves obviously haven't been touched. But when they did...
Vernon, I'm sorry,
well, I'm asking
probably
a
access, but if you can just stick... If we can stick to questions, that is question time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm asking a question. The question is, perhaps you weren't aware they only did half, but if you were you also aware that they only removed 1/3 of the sediment that was known to be in the river from the sections they actually worked on?
Look, I'm not personally aware of the ins and outs of the sediment removal. I am aware that there are a number of factors, as I understand it, that influenced the dredging in each of those stages and the ability to remove the nutrients. I am aware that stage 1, the estimate or sediment removal was around 30%, and that there were some issues experienced that are being sought to be improved. So, look, I'm aware there were some issues, but I'm not personally aware of the ins and outs of all of them, no.
Well, they're very important factors. We won't get rid of the toxic algal blooms until we remove 99% of the sediment, or 90%. That's all I can say, and it's not happening.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, I've got a question from Councillor Kennedy.
Oh, yeah, well, I think it was just more of a, Vern. It was, I don't know if it's more of a question, but my understanding, you said your interpretation of the officer's comment that the Lower Bass River Management Advisory Group was successful. My understanding of that was it was successful in deciding to implement the sediment removal. So that was the success. It wasn't, I don't think the officer's comment was that we've successfully removed the sediment. It was just we've started to implement it.
Yeah, but when Apex were awarded the job, they told us that they would be able to remove 90% of the known sediment. They ended up removing 33%. Totally unacceptable, yet they were given further stages. I hope they don't get any more.
Thank you. Sort of, please.
Yeah. Oh,
That's-
that was just my interpretation of the thing, whether we're on the same page.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank you.
Kennedy. Thank you, Vernon. And I will request that in this chambers there is some respect. We're not having cheering and jeering. This is an opportunity to ask questions of council. If you wish to present or come in, then there are other opportunities to do so. Thank you. Next, we have Terry Ealing.
Sorry, I'm a little bit slow. I just had a cataract operation, so I'm trying to find my way in. Here we go. All right. Now, I draw your attention that in the general conditions of DA 20/0438, with the City of Busselton logo on top, dated the 16th of October 2020, titled Notice of Determination on Application for Development Approval, City of Busselton Local Planning Schedule number 23. In the general conditions, section 1, it states, and I quote, "The development hereby approved is permitted to operate for 5 years from the date of this decision or until 168,750 cubic metres volume has been extracted, whichever is sooner." So the deal is that the extraction operation goes for 5 years, which can be renewed, applied for after that, or if the maximum amount of 168,750 cubic metres, if that has been extracted and proven to be extracted, that is the end of the DA. The site shall be rehabilitated with an approved rehabilitation plan by the expiry date of this development approval. My wife wrote to the City of Busselton.
Terry, again, what is your question, please?
I'm getting to it. Can I get to that? Or
is
do you want
question
me
time.
to go through all the emails that I've got? Because it might be to the amusement of the people here. I'm not aiming for that. I'm aiming to find out. The question is exactly what it says. Why hasn't the total amount ever been calculated? Now, my emails go back to 2022. I've been waiting 2 years for this to be answered by the staff. Now, the Ombudsman wrote back and said the staff had said there was no one qualified to do it. Yet last night, I'm not trying to be funny here. I'm being factual. I only deal in prima facie evidence. I'm not interested in lies or anything else like that. I'm not trying to insinuate it, but the fact is, since 2022, I've been asking the same question of the Shire to the compliance officers, Mr. Washburn, Mr. Wallen, okay, of why hasn't this calculation been done when the truck movements that I've given all evidence of, I've taken the time to sit down, even in the night when they were operating prior the correct starting times, sat there in the dark and recorded the number of truck movements across the road at this DA 20/0438. And to this day, no one is doing the calculation. Now, I've applied it, I've given the workings, okay, and I'm not expecting anything from the council tonight because I believe that I'll have to go to the CCC. But at some point in time, somebody is going to answer, because the reality is the residents around these
Look,
extraction
this
units
has
are
been come
poorly
up.
treated.
No, we're not ignoring your question.
Well, I think you are. I think you are, because it doesn't take 2 years
I'll
for
offer-
me.
I'll offer
Okay,
this.
all right, with that,
My-
remember, with this, I also gave a photo of the inside of a loader, which has the load right system in it, which is given out a readout every time somebody come into the pit and loaded. It was very easy to add up all those chips, okay, on a
Sorry,
calculator,
Terry, I
and it would have
listened to
told you.
We're trying to.
Mr Ealing, my understanding, and I will confirm this with officers after tonight, but my understanding is that there was some information provided to you in January with that we had received a licensed survey.
Who
and
was it?
that-
Who was it?
Yeah, look, I'll have to come.
No,
back
no,
to you.
I'm dealing in fact here. I give you all the information that I have, and I'm asking you,
I'll have to
who
take
was
that.
that person?
Mr.
Because
Ealing.
if they're licensed, we're
Ealing,
settlement agents.
Mr.
We
Ealing.
know every licensed surveyor in this town.
I'll need to take that portion of your question
Well-
on notice. However, it is my understanding that you were provided with some information in January that we had received a survey and that they had not reached their extraction
Mr.
limits.
Ealing, sorry.
I've also
Sorry.
received
Mr. Ealing.
information from you that every year there was supposed to
Mr.
be a
Ealing.
biannual meeting.
Ealing.
I'm going. A biannual meeting, and that's never occurred. So therefore, there has been 4 opportunities for a report to be brought forward and
Thank you,
given
Mr. Ealing.
that
I'm going to
that's
ask
what's
you to
saying.
sit down, but thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Thank you. Cheers.
I didn't, excuse me, sir, I didn't expect an answer. I really mean this. We have to go to the CCC.
But we are
You know
very
that.
aware of this scenario. Are there any other questions of the public? Thank you. Mr. Sims.
Okay, Keith Sims, Busselton. Evening, Mayor, councillors and staff. So, at the meeting on Monday, we were told that the council would be presented with a request for a new contingency budget for the saltwater. We know the original 3 million contingency was included in the 44.5 million total budget, leaving 6.5 in addition to the 38 million construction contract. That is 3.5 million for the landscaping, etc., to complete the project. Question: will the new contingency amount be transparent, listing what each amount is for?
Through the chair, we are reviewing the contingency budget. We're not yet clear on whether there will be required any amendments to that, but we are reviewing it. And certainly, as I said, I think on Monday night, any final costings for the project will be public.
So maybe I misunderstood what you were saying, but I thought it was going to happen.
So we're currently reviewing it, but that doesn't mean there'll be amendments to it.
Okay.
We're reviewing.
Okay. Okay, so if there is amendments and it comes before council for a change or an addition in contingency money, would that be for broad constructions? Because that would increase their $38 million contract.
I couldn't answer that at this point in time. I'm not sure what it would be for. Don't have those details.
Okay. And for Part C, how much do you expect the cost to rise for the $3.5 million balance?
Again, we're currently reviewing that. I don't have any of that
Okay.
information.
Thank you. So on Monday night also, I mentioned the Hilton Garden Inn hotel parking. So in addition to my question at that meeting, is there any reason why the city can't install a public car park sign or ensure that the Hilton does for the public half share of the car park?
I am still looking into that matter.
Yeah,
I believe if it is a public car park, then we could erect a public car park sign, yes.
Okay.
But I am still looking into the matter.
Yeah, no, and I respect that. But so the answer is that once you've established that, then the city could put a sign in there saying it's public car park.
I believe we could, yes.
And would?
That I'd need to have further conversations around that budget, etc.
All right, thank you. And I'd just like to say to Councillor Riccelli, good luck with your future endeavours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Sims. Do we have any other questions? Please come forward.
Dr. Andrew Dickey from Busselton. My question is very simple and straightforward. I'm not going to make any preamble because what I've said before as a medical practitioner, I've said on many occasions to council meetings, to electors meetings, and as a member of the advisory group, firstly. And secondly, I don't want to be cut short on the mayor. My question is this. Has any elected councillor or any officer of the council viewed the most recent Department of Water and Environmental Regulation phytoplankton water test results from the Lower Bass River, particularly the Peel Terrace section that has been dredged and had phosphate applied? Because I have, and they are not good. Has anybody viewed them? Right.
We'll take that on notice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please. If you're not going to respect the chamber. Are there any other questions? Mariah? Sorry.
Are we a community or are we a school, middle school children, and you tell us to respect you, but you don't respect us?
That is absolutely not, no. Do you want me to
Mr. Mayor, you
would
came to
like
my
me adjourn the
house,
meeting?
excuse me, you came to my house and
there
you
a
told me,
question?
there is a question I asked you. You told me that I have to accept risk when I go on roads, public roads. Now, you want to put 100 trucks on my road.
This isn't before council.
Excuse me, it's for community consultation. So, is it a community that we live in where we get to have more than 3 minutes to ask questions because my emails don't get answered? And you say, 3 minutes, stop asking questions, stop bothering us, don't clap. Or is it school? Because I'm not a child.
Thank you. How much time? Are there any more questions? Thank you. If not, I'll move on. We have no petitions, and now we have presentations with the parties, by parties with an interest. We've received some bookings for the parties, and first off we have Don Best from the residents of Eagle Bay Association with regards to development application DA 0817, the bed and breakfast of 29 Carnarvon Castle Drive, Eagle Bay. Thank you, Don. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, good evening, councillors and staff. My name's Don Best, as just been introduced, and I'm the president of the Residents of Eagle Bay Association. The original version of the DA for number 29 Carnarvon Castle Drive was refused approval at the September 2023 council meeting due to a number of concerns in regards to non-compliance with the Eagle Bay Special Character Area Policy and also visual amenity issues. The applicant took this refusal to SAT, and based on the outcome of a preliminary SAT hearing, has submitted amended plans in relation to the DA for reconsideration by council as per the agenda item tonight. Excuse me. It's good to see that the revised plans have addressed many of the previous issues of concern in regards of non-compliance with the TPS and relevant plan and policies. Although the revised plans have reduced the height of the outbuilding shed from 3.34 to 3.1 and increased the setback from the street by 3 metres, from a visual amenity point of view, this is still a large shed that's 7.9 by 3.1 high, with a large 5-metre roller door facing the street. It is assumed this roller door will be used to provide vehicle access to this shed from the street. Hence, the area in front of the roller door will be void of any vegetation growth that could help to reduce the shed's visual impact from the street. If the shed is rotated 90 degrees such that the roller door is facing the south, then it would be possible to plant vegetation along the west side of the shed to help visually screen it from the street. Also, if the roller door access is changed to the south, then the shed would not need to be constructed on top of an earthworks pad as currently shown on the revised plan. The shed could then be constructed on a lower level on a cut and fill pad, which would help to reduce the visual height impact of the shed from the streetscape point of view. An additional benefit of vehicle access to the shed from the south would mean that this access could be provided off the side of the proposed driveway to the new dwelling. This would negate the likelihood of any further DA variation to provide a third street crossover from the street to allow vehicular access to the shed. The SCA policy defines a preference for only 1 street crossover per property. This property currently now has 2 approved street crossovers, so the likelihood of seeking a third crossover in the future is to be avoided. If councillors decide this evening to vote in favour of approving this DA, then we would request that such approval be made conditional on the reorientation of the outbuilding shed with the roller door to the south to help improve the visual amenity from the streetscape point of view. We have noted that in this agenda item presented to council, there is an executive summary provided on page 25. In this summary, it is a list of items that the applicant has proposed to amend in the DA plans, namely reduced building height to 7.5, reduced outbuilding wall height to 3.1, and that's noted to be subject to submission of amended plans pursuant to condition 5.1. Increased outbuilding setback to the western lot boundary by an additional 3 metres, removal of water tank in order to accommodate the increased outbuilding setback, and reduced scale of the upper storey to cover 59.7% of the area of the ground floor. However, only one of these items appears in clause 5.1 of the officer recommendation to councillors in regards to conditions for approval. This seems rather strange. Again, if councillors decide this evening to vote in favour of approving this DA, then we would request that such approval be made conditional that all of the proposed changes to the plans as per the executive summary are included within the planner's recommendation clause 5.1 of the approval conditions. As a closing comment, it's our understanding that at the public access meeting last week there were some rather disparaging remarks made by the applicants for this DA in regards to REBA. In terms of REBA obstructing the DA approval process for their dream home. If the applicants had simply complied with the obligations of the Eagle Bay Special Character Area Policy in their original DA, rather than trying to push all the limits via discretionary approvals, they could have saved themselves and others a lot of time, money and anguish. REBA makes no apology for making best efforts to ensure that all developments in Eagle Bay comply with the Eagle Bay Special Character Area Policy obligations. Following the December 2023 AGM of REBA, there has been a very strong continuing resolve from the community membership that REBA should continue to push to ensure ongoing DA approvals comply with the obligations of the Eagle Bay Special Character Area Plan. Also, to push the city for a long overdue update of the SCAP. Hopefully this update process can commence in the not too distant future. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen.
Thank you, Mr. Best.
Thanks.
A question, if I may. Sorry. Mr. Best, mine's fairly easy question. I'm not too sure if you'd know off the top of your head, but how many members does REBA currently have?
Well, Eagle Bay has about 300 lots, and the Eagle Bay REBA membership, we actually have over 200 members, but in terms of properties, there's probably representation of about 170 to 180 properties, so it's well over 50%.
Noting that Eagle Bay has a lot of holiday homes, so that is quite a number of representation.
Correct, yeah.
There.
And they're all quite
All right.
active members, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Love. No further questions? No. Thank you, Don. Cheers. Next, we have a presentation which will be on via Zoom, and that's Tina and Lee Smith, who are the proponents for the same item 11.1, which is the DA 220817. Can we hear you?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Great. Where should we start? We've been to SAT and mediation with the City of Busselton, and now to try and add additional conditions to our DA seems quite unfair, not what has been agreed or not what has been discussed, and seems unreasonable to do so. None of the new conditions were given as reasons for refusal in September 2023. We have addressed all of those reasons for refusal and made concessions to our DA as well as other concessions, which we didn't need to. And our property and DA does comply with the SCAP document fully. It is approvable as it is. So I'm a little bit tired of listening to what REBA think about our DA and how our roller door should face and et cetera, and also based on assumption every single time. And it's just wrong. You guys know, because I have had communication with you today, the shed is not for cars. It's not for storage in that regard. We don't want another crossover. There will be no cars there. It's our storage shed. It's my husband's studio. So there's only one roller door facing the road, and that would seem quite normal on any property.
Yeah, we would also say the shed has been moved back 3 metres, and the initial application of our first DA did have the roller door on the front. And during the process of working with the planning department, where the water tank was in place, we did agree to moving the door to the south-facing boundary. Having had that DA refused, removing the water tank as a way to come to a solution, find a solution with council, we pushed the shed back 3 metres, and we just want the door back to where it was originally proposed. You'll also note that we have moved the garage door on the house, has gone to the south-facing end, meaning, as Tina said, there's only one door that will be facing the western frontage. We don't think that's unreasonable. It's 8 metres away from the road. Yeah, there are mature trees on the edge where the pad will sit, and it will sit down in the ground. It will set really well. Some marri trees, some beautiful big round grass trees that are sort of ground based, that will have a good coverage, and the shed will sit in that corner, deeper into the block, down into the block, near the ancillary, near the main dwelling. So we just think there's no reason to put a condition that our door should face anywhere else other than where we've put it, and put it in front of council.
And if that was to be the case, then I would like to know what is the planning reason for having to move the roller door, and on what basis that you wish to impose that on us. What else?
No, we're keen to get our house approved after 15 plus months.
Yeah, that would be really nice. Yeah. I think in the last communication that actually went out from Reba on the emails, it did state from Don that the representation was 48% of the community of Eagle Bay. Those are the most recent figures, just to help answer that question before too.
Thank you. We have a question from Councillor Riccelli.
Yes, look, it's probably for our new planning director, but I think that's a reasonable question, Tina and Lee. So in the officer recommendation, you do advise that you would prefer the roller door to be reorientated back to the south. So can you elaborate a little bit more on your reasons for that, please?
Do you want us to elaborate on that?
No, sorry, I'm directing it really more so to the planning director.
Okay.
I think it was outlined in the pulled item that the potential for another crossover wouldn't be desirable in that location. Having said that, any future crossover would have to go through an application process, so there is some level of control of that. The only other element of it is the visual amenity of whether a roller door in that location is appropriate and can be screened. If they need access to it, it may reduce the width of screening that can be planted out, even if they're accessing it from their own property. But in the, again, in the pulled item, there is a recommendation for a landscaping plan, so that may address that issue.
So sorry, just one more subsequent question, if I may. So I guess I'm just needing a little bit more clarification. So having listened to what's been provided here today, are you now advising that you would be open to it staying in the actual position that it's in now, as long as there was sufficient landscaping, or are you still recommending that it be moved back to the southerly position?
The officer's preference is that it's relocated to the previously agreed position.
So what is the planning? Sorry, I don't know if I can interject there or not. I'm sorry if I can't. But okay, thanks. What is the actual planning reason for that?
I think I've just outlined that it relates to the visual amenity and the ability to screen it. And my understanding is it was a previously agreed position.
There was nothing put forward that when it previously faced the south that there would be any screening required down that side of the shed anyway. So what's changed? We've actually given it screening by moving it further into the block 3 metres.
We're now 8 metres away from the road where it actually complied on the boundary, but we've moved it back to satisfy that. Yeah.
Allay concerns.
I'll go to Councillor. Is this regarding the same question? Yeah. Sorry, just Councillor Richards.
It is actually. Is that okay, Councillor
Yeah.
Richards? It is sort of a question for Mr. Best, actually, if you wouldn't mind coming back up. Sorry. I guess I'm just trying to clarify.
You try and get as close to the microphone.
Oh,
sorry.
sorry. Yeah. I don't like this position. I much prefer my old one. Yeah, Mr. Best, I guess from your point of view, do you have an issue with the visual aspect now, given that it is 8 metres back from the road and has more screening? What are your main objections to the shed in this orientation?
Well, that lot is in a very visual location. It's right on a corner block, and it's the main entry to that whole subdivision area. And in addition to that, the road that runs down in front of that shed was never intended to be a main entry road into that subdivision. It's actually only, I think it's only 11.5 metres wide, whereas all the other roads in that subdivision are 14 or 16 metres wide. It was actually meant to be a laneway. So it's only got a 5 metre setback from the street. That's the setback for the block, and they've moved it back another 3 metres, which is 8 metres. But it's a very large shed, you know, it's 9 metres by 7 metres, and it's 3.1 metres high.
It's not.
It's 8 metres by 7, sorry to interrupt.
It's smaller.
We've got to be accurate. It's eight by 7, and it's
way smaller.
This is a presentation. I won't be going into debate at this stage, so thank you.
Sorry, Rochelle, so that was really, it's just the visual amenity issue is that it's a very visual location, and, you know, having a roller door in that location rather than
it's
walls.
yeah.
Okay.
Don, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Councillor
Richards.
It's
Yeah, I
it's
know,
written
it-
just here.
We struggle with
It
that.
hasn't changed yet.
Councillor Richards.
Just a question for Tina and Lee. There is a consideration there for the landscaping component. Are you agreeable to that?
Thank you for asking the question, Jodie. And initially, you know, and also after speaking to our lawyer, really no extra conditions after being through the SAT mediation process is appropriate. But considering we're going to landscape our property anyway, of course, and we want it to look beautiful, we would accept a landscaping condition. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Councillor McNeish.
There you go. The relativities in the planning weight given to the visual amenity of a roller door versus the reasonableness of having one roller door facing the road. Isn't that exactly what we're talking about here?
Yes, exactly. And all homes have a roller door facing the road.
Questions to the director.
Sorry.
I think that's what council needs to weigh up in its decision. The staff have felt that there is merit in changing the garage door. It's up to the council to determine if they agree with that position and do their own weighing up of the pros and cons.
Thank you, Director. Will, as you're right, we probably will talk about this in debate then. Thank you. Thank you, Tina and Lee. Appreciate their time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
We have another presenter, which is back to Don Best on item 11.2, the development application DA 230327, the single house, swimming pool and gym, garage, special character area at lot 16, number 6, Seaview Rise, Eagle Bay. Thank you, Don. You have 5 minutes.
Well, actually, we didn't apply to have a presentation on that item. But while I'm here, I guess I will just make the point that there is a little bit of discrepancy between what REBA's legal advice is and what the city's legal advice is on what is the standing of a structure plan in terms of, you know, especially in the REBA Schedule 4, where the structure plan is brought forward into Schedule 4, and is it then subject to discretionary powers or not? The city have told me at a meeting I had with them that they're sticking by their legal advice. We've decided that it's not worth our while trying to push it. So I guess we'll just leave it in council's hands for what they decide on that application.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. Cheers.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sorry.
Of our new director, we did talk about this today in a planning session. Can you please explain the changes to the WAPC have enacted in regards to structure plans and what their future plans are in relation to structure plans?
Thanks, Councillor Ryan. With the introduction of the new regulations, structure plans were no longer statutory instruments. They were documents that just have to have due regard. So I guess referring to that legal advice, that although the Schedule 4 references a structure plan, the planning framework is very clear that a structure plan is not a statutory instrument, has due regard, and there is discretion around it, and it can be varied. And the other part to your question was the future. There are some of those older structure plans will expire. I think it's 2025, unless they're renewed, and we would be looking at how we incorporate some of those elements into the scheme with Scheme 22.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, I'll now move on to adoption by exception resolution. We now move The officer recommendations for items 11.2, 14.1 and 14.2 be adopted en bloc. Do I have a mover for the en bloc resolution? Councillor Ryan. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cagg. Any opposition? If there are no opposition, I therefore put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried 9-0. Thank you. Now move on to items for debate. We have an alternative motion for item 10.1 from Councillor McNish. As per clause 10.18(7) of the City of Busselton Standing Orders Local Law 2018, the committee recommendation will be considered first. So if nobody puts that motion forward, it will go on to Councillor McNish's. Do I have a mover for the committee's recommendation for 10.1? We have no movers. So that has lapsed. Therefore, I will ask Councillor McNish to move his alternative motion. I'm going to be used in it. Yeah. So would you like to move your alternative?
As written.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for this? Councillor Ryan. Do I have any objections? If not, move the motion. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Move on to item 11.1. Development application DA 22 817, the bed and breakfast, change of use and new development, special control area lot 301, number 29, Carnarvon Castle Drive, Eagle Bay, and this has been pulled by myself. So I will move that motion. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Do I have any objections? I have an objection. Thank you. So I will talk to my motion. In simple terms, my understanding is that what was originally came to council when this item came up in October, it was agreed on a certain principle or turned away, and the design was then went to SAT, etc. It was agreed with council, and then when it came back, the design had then changed. So what was originally negotiated went through with the panel and agreed to by the council, but then at the last moment, a different plan was arrived on our desk. That's what I picked up, and therefore, looking at it, it was fairly obvious with a dropped curve quite close by. With the roller door there, I felt that this was just going to be used as a garage, for the purpose of a garage for boats or caravans or such like, and I also found out that a DA had been approved for the north access as well. So they already had 2 DAs, and with the change of the orientation of where the bed and breakfast component was, where the driveway used to be connected to the garage, connected to the bed and breakfast, it basically had all been separated into 3 separate areas. So I felt that it was wise to put forward this condition that they changed the orientation so it was closer to the driveway, and therefore also to add some protection through landscaping. And that's simply it. Thank you. Anne, do you wish to speak?
I reserve my right.
Thank you. Do we have any? Yes. Councillor Richards, you wish to speak? Yes, thank you.
Sure. To be fair, I think the Smiths have put in a great deal of effort, and they have taken on board Reba's concerns, and I thank Reba for the representation that they make in protecting the special character area, and they do a great job. The Smiths have complied with everything that was required of them in the SAT, to a considerable expense to them, to make sure that they do comply. They want to be a part of this community. They want to live there they call it their forever home. I did ask the director prior to this meeting, does this DA as it stands comply? And the answer is yes. So given everything that the Smiths have done to try and accommodate everything that's been asked of them, including moving the shed back, including agreeing to the landscaping, and we've had in writing confirmation that they don't intend to have a third crossover. It's an assumption, and as our director pointed out, there are mechanisms in place that there's going to have to be a DA that they would have to apply for. So it would be unlikely to get through, given that most houses only have one crossover. This, because it's on a corner, has two, that they wouldn't get approved for three. So to that end, in my mind, the Smiths have done everything reasonable because they want to be a part of this community. I think they're even members of REBA. So their intention is to be a part of the community. I think they've complied. And the planning department says this DA complies. So on that ground, I don't think I don't think it would be reasonable for us, given that SAT have said this is reasonable. I don't think it's reasonable for us to knock back this application. Thank you.
Speaker for? Speaker against?
Yeah, I think, oh, hello. Yeah, there's been a lot of compromise here, but I think the key point is the orientation of the shed changed from the original, but also did the setback. So maybe in that design process, when the setback had to be moved further 3 metres, it was more applicable to have the garage door facing the west. And I think there's sufficient verge and setback to establish some vegetation there to screen it out for amenity. So my intention is to object. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker for? Speaker against? Councillor Riccelli?
I'd like to foreshadow an alternative, should this not go through, to Mayor Cronin's motion that we simply delete item 5.1 and the removal of the roller door from the western elevation to the southern elevation, but keep points 5.2 and 5.3, and I'll talk to those reasons if I get a chance.
So thank you. Your alternative, or should mine lapse, that'll be the alternative? Or not?
Sorry, just to clarify, Councillor Riccelli, could you just repeat what you were foreshadowing?
I'd like to remove item 5.1, but keep 5.2 and 5.3. And I mean, I can talk briefly to those reasons.
No, that's okay. I just want to clarify that it is an alternative and not an amendment. Yeah.
Just the extra, the removal of the roller door from the western elevation to the southern elevation. So,
So just keeping that. Okay, so it is an alternative. Thank you. Just the removal of the red for item 5.1, please.
Can I please ask a question?
You may.
If removal of 5.1 happens, how can the landscaping be done in front of the shed door?
It was just the western front, wasn't it?
Western and northern. It says the western and northern elevation on there.
That's all. It's not about the, it was just along the edge of the road.
It's only foreshadowed for now, so you
Yeah.
if it gets to that point.
Do I have a mover for? Speaker for? Speaker against? Please.
I would like to congratulate Councillor Riccelli for coming up with that option, because that seems to encapsulate what I think would be a reasonable position. I asked before about the relative planning weight of visual amenity. of a roller door 8 metres from the road, or the reasonableness of having one roller door facing the road. So, I mean, you don't own a view, you do own a house. And, you know, a man's home is his castle. So if we can find a way by supporting the foreshadowing of the position whereby there is a door, but it is screened and prevented from having future crossover control, that would seem to be reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for? Speaker against? Right of reply? Right, your reserve? Second.
I'm speaking against.
Speaking against, please.
I'm just concurring with what my fellow elected members have previously mentioned in their debate. While I certainly appreciate Reba's stance, I believe that if Mayor Cronin's alternative falls through and we put through Councillor Riccelli's alternative, incorporating the landscape plan but removing that additional section in 5.1, should alleviate and address some of Areva's concerns that they have have raised in relation to this council recommendation. But I also wanted to note that obviously the Smiths have made quite a considerable effort and have changed quite a number of their conditions and design elements compared to the original, noting Reba's original concerns, and I think that they have gone a long way to address those concerns.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, you've reserved the right. You wish not to speak? Having listened to all the presentations and Councillor's debate, I'm quite happy with the alternative being put forward by Sue Riccelli. Councillor Riccelli, sorry. So that's my thing. My main concern was that it wouldn't be used as a crossover, but if the landscaping is in place, then I'm more than happy to agree with that. So thank you. Okay, therefore I put the motion. All those in favour?
Can I just get some clarification what we're actually voting for here? Sorry. We're voting. Yep. So we are
voting on my motion. If it fails, then it'll go to yours. All those in favour? All those against? Lost 9-0. Therefore, we now put forward the alternative by Councillor Riccelli. Would you like to speak to your motion? Or...
Sorry, it's just that it was crossed out on the screen,
yeah,
so I just
sorry.
wanted to clarify that. Yes, I'd like to foreshadow the alternative as suggested that the roller door be allowed to stay at its current elevation. I do appreciate that there has been a change in the DA. However, I also...
Sorry, Councillor Chair. We'll just move it and see if we have a seconder, if that's all right.
All in debate,
Do we have a seconder? Yeah. Yes, Councillor Love. Are there any...
talk to it.
Are there any objections? If not, I put the motion forward. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Councillor Riccelli, you're lost. Motion put through. Right, now we'll just get up to speed on that. Okay, we'll move on to item 14.3, the Audit and Risk Committee, terms of reference, independent member, and that has been pulled by the officers. So the alternate recommendation is put in front of you, that we adopt the amended Audit and Risk Committee terms of reference in attachment 4 and accept the CEO's responses to the request in Council Resolution C 2311-178. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation, the alternative recommendation? Councillor McNeish. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Richards. Do I have any objection? If not, I put the motion forward. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. Item 15.1, the elected member information bulletin, again pulled by officers. See the recommendations in the amended recommendation in front of you. Do I have a mover for this motion? Councillor Love. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McNeish. Is there any objection? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you, councillors. Item 16.1, notice of motion, the Busselton Jetty Committee put forward by Councillor Anne Ryan, that the council have received a notion of motion from Councillor Ryan as displayed on the screen. But we have some amendments, I believe. Sure. Councillor Ryan, would you like to move your motion, please?
As displayed on the screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? I have a seconder, Councillor Richards. Is there any objection? We have objections, so Councillor Ryan, would you like to speak to your motion, please? Sorry. Oh, sorry, who objected? Well, that'll come up. Councillor Love, sorry, initial objection, sorry. My apologies. Yeah, also we'll need to put up the terms of reference on the screen as this has been added. Councillor Ryan, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Councillors, the Busselton Jetty is our biggest tourism drawcard and assets. One of the 4 pillars of our strategic plan states leadership, a council that connects with the community and is accountable in its decision making. Just think about those words for a moment, a council that connects with the community. Then think about clause 2.7 of the Local Government Act, which states the role of the council, that's you, is to govern the local government's affairs and is responsible for the performance of the local government's function, oversee the allocation of local government finances and resources, and determine the local government's policies. That means our biggest tourism drawcard, and one which will have a huge capital works being undertaken in the next few years, being overseen by the City and Department of Transport, should bear scrutiny by the council, and why I'm raising a committee structure rather than an advisory group. Councillors, I ask you, noting that this matter and 16.3 is in relation to the jetty also, what do you know about the finer points of the jetty, its finances, its spikes in funding requirements, the issues relating to current and future projects on the jetty? What do you truly know? The officer's report states, before establishing a committee, the council and the administration should consider the need and merits of establishing such a committee, tick, the costs and impacts of establishing such a committee, tick, and the terms of reference for the committee and the actual work that such a committee will undertake for the council, tick. This comment is, however, a little misleading. The Local Government Act, clause 5.8, states a local government may establish committees of 3 or more persons to assist the council and to exercise the powers and discharge the duties of the local government. That can be delegated to committees. Where does it state the administration should consider that? Nowhere. You are the collective council. I addressed dot point 1. The need and merits of establishing a committee became evident when the former mayor suggested the advisory groups were just a talk fest of a couple of councillors, or words to that effect. The minutes and agendas of committee meetings are published and freely available for council who have to approve those minutes, and considering this community asset is significant, I would have thought that this would be worthy of consideration in the least, but I will address the issue of information flow later. But also contradicting this in the staff comment, the notice of motion for 16.3, there may also be regular information that both council and the community are interested in receiving about the jetty and its operations. This could also be achieved should council support the officer's proposal in the notice of motion regarding the Busselton Jetty reference group. This would see a review of the terms of reference that could be informed by the council briefing to capture items of an ongoing nature that council would like to receive from the minutes of the reference group meetings and regular council briefing sessions. Point 2, the advisory group already meets, takes up staff time, and the significant impacts I would have thought obvious, but also noting item 16.3 of the agenda and request for a report to council. Point 3, the terms of reference are nearly word for word copied from the airport terms of reference, an asset which the council acknowledges by way of a committee. Surely the jetty, another major city asset, should be acknowledged in this way. And the council is fully aware of that asset and can relay that information to the community. The report goes on. Committees under section 5.8 are not set up for the purposes of information sharing and dissemination. Quite right. It is not stipulated in the Local Government Act, but nor is a suggestion that the administration should consider the merits of a committee. You are, councillors. Noting the council has previously had a Busselton Jetty Advisory Committee. This committee was not re-established in 2015 when the council determined that the Busselton Jetty Reference Group could adequately deal with matters relating to the Busselton Jetty, and that was the appropriate forum to do so. No problem. A previous council may resolve that an advisory group was acceptable. I'm asking this council, how confident are you that you are being kept informed of the biggest drawcard to this region? On tonight's agenda, you will see at item 10, reports of committee, Busselton Margaret River Airport update. Yet, there is nothing on the jetty. No minutes are forwarded, and I recognise that we now have minutes on our internal councillor portal. But the public do not see this. Remember the strategic plan. We are a council that connects with the community and are accountable in our decision making. In my reasons, I quote the visitor numbers, nearly 600,000 paid and unpaid, and expected numbers of 1 million in 2027, as opposed to the airport passenger numbers of 135,700. And finally, I will address the staff numbers. The last meeting minutes that I see reflect 4 staff members attending. Please tell me how moving from an advisory group to a formal committee will require more staff time that is already being expended. Councillors, I urge you to vote in favour of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Richards, would you like to?
I'll reserve my right. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Do I have a speaker against? Councillor Love.
I actually agree with Councillor Ryan on a number of points raised in her notice of motion. I am just going to be foreshadowing an alternative to her notice of motion, just because I believe that we could retain the Busselton Jetty reference group, and with some slight tweaking to the terms of reference of the Busselton Jetty reference group, and by requesting the CEO to include the minutes of the Busselton Jetty reference group into the elected members' information bulletin, alongside getting the CEO to review reporting items and scheduling for the council. I believe we could achieve what Councillor Ryan's notice of motion is intending. That is if her motion falls.
Thank you, Councillor Love. Do I have a speaker for? Councillor McNeish.
I'd like to speak for because I see this committee would be an important statement relating to the governance of an icon asset. We have well, the River Committee that is on the agenda tonight, River being an icon, of course the jetty, the airport, and we have a number of committees that are important to the functioning of a $1 billion organisation as we are, which are our other committees. So for automatically to have the information, the imprimatur of the council, and the information automatically come to the council via the committee minutes, I think is worth recasting, reviewing the existence of the advisory group, turning it into a committee and having a very tight terms of reference that the attachment 1 explains will have a priority project for reviewing the legal instruments that surround the jetty, its operation, and our risk.
Thank you, Councillor McNeish. Do I have a speaker against? Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In October last year, officers undertook a review of all the committee and reference groups with the aim of assessing their performance, relevance and functionality. The motion was carried 8-1 and ironically I was the one against, in favour of retaining the jetty reference group with 2 elected members and 1 deputy. Yet here we are just a few months later being asked to consider revoking the reference group in favour of jetty committee, which makes me curious as to why this was not raised during the review in October. Councillors, I will be voting against this motion for a number of reasons. Introduce a committee similar to that of the airport is one argument. The jetty is run by BJI, a not-for-profit organisation. They have a board of 8 professional people who manage and oversee the operation of the jetty under the legal framework of a constitution. The airport does not have a board. It is run by the city and therefore it makes sense that there would be a committee overseeing and reviewing its operation. I don't believe that there is a comparison to be made here or that this argument supports the formation of a jetty committee. Decision making. I think that we need to be cautious about adding in yet another layer of bureaucracy in the decision-making process. BJI have in the past been critical of lengthy timeframes when decisions require reports to be drafted by staff and then must come to council for endorsement. If you add in another layer of reporting and recommendation, these timeframes will become even longer. In situations where quick action is required, relying on a committee will quite possibly impede progress. Conflicts of interest. When you have members of the BJI board also sitting on a committee that is making recommendations to council, how do you eliminate any conflict? Rather than just having informal discussions to inform decision-making as a reference group, here you are considering and voting on reports that require recommendations to council and in some cases delegated authority to make decisions. To whom do board members owe their loyalty? Will there be a conflict of duty? What a board member may perceive as acting in the best interests of BJI or the jetty may be in conflict with that of council. And that's fine if it's just a robust discussion in a reference group, but it has more serious ramifications when it's a committee of council. Resources. Establishing another committee will undoubtedly require additional resources in staff time, council time and administrative time. It is necessary to consider this additional financial impost when deciding whether to burden staff and councillors with yet another committee. Point E. The review of the licence agreement, in my opinion, strays into administrative territory and I'm not necessarily comfortable with that either. The definition of review is the formal assessment of something with the intention of instituting change if necessary, and in my opinion, that's an administrative operation. Councillors, it is essential to streamline existing administrative structures rather than introducing additional layers of bureaucracy. A reference group does not require a quorum, meetings can be convened as and when required, and there is potential for members with a conflict to participate. Committees can be notoriously slow and can potentially be bogged down in lengthy decision-making and bureaucratic hurdles. The division of roles may lead to challenges in ensuring accountability for decisions made by the committee. Clear lines of responsibility and accountability need to be established to avoid governance issues. I disagree that advisory groups have not been recognised by full council of late. This is a subjective argument. The assertion by the previous mayor that advisory groups have no power may not be a bad thing. Why do we need to create another body with power? Advisory groups, and I sit on a number of them, are very valuable for facilitating robust discussion and dissemination of information. It is up to individual councillors to ensure that they are kept well informed and they are free to attend advisory group meetings or request minutes of those meetings at any time. In my opinion, the Jetty Advisory Group is working efficiently. However, I acknowledge the improvements can always be made, but I do not believe that it needs to be formalised into a committee. And I would urge you to vote against this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Do I have speaker for? Speaker against? Councillor Riccelli.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was going to cover some of the points that Councillor Cox has already raised, so I will keep mine a little shorter. I was certainly going to raise the issue of conflict of interest, which I think is a major conflict in this instance, and also the comparison to the airport, as well as my concerns as well over reviewing the licence agreement and that, I guess, going into forbidden territory in administrative matters. I'm going to talk about, I suppose, a different perspective with regards to this notice of motion. It is interesting to note that this will be the first of 4 notice of motions that Councillor Ryan was to put through tonight. She has hastily retracted one this afternoon, which in itself is intriguing. That so many notice of motions put forward.
Councillor Riccelli.
Yes,
I digress. I will move on.
I'll ask you to withdraw, if you will, and apologise.
No, there won't be an apology forthcoming.
Sorry, please take a seat, Councillor Riccelli. I've had a point of order. I will make a ruling on that point of order, and I will ask Councillor Riccelli to
retract it and apologise.
To retain your remarks and stick to the debate, please. Thank you.
I will retract the statement. I'm not apologising. The formation of a Busselton Jetty Committee, I believe, is unnecessary, costly, and will ultimately slow down decision-making, not speed it up, as decisions would need to go through committee first before coming through council. Financial details are clearly identified and transparent through our Finance Committee. It is concerning that Councillor Ryan's motions appear to have a common theme. They increase administrative overheads and affect the running of an organisation.
Point of order.
Please take a seat.
Yes, this is relevant because it does increase administrative overheads.
Try not to be too...
I've raised a point of order.
Please take a seat, Councillor Riccelli. Your point of order.
I'm just a little bit tired of being accused of using staff time and resources. My job, I haven't finished.
You got to talk to your motion. I raised a very valid argument about administrative
Okay, councillors, please.
Point of order.
Yeah. So the breach of the standing orders.
8:16. Adverse reflection. It is our role to be putting up notices of motion.
I will ask you to speak to that motion in a moment. Councillor Riccelli, I will have to say that I do wish that you would stick to the motion and not to...
Administrative overheads are part of my argument.
But maybe stick to that in your argument rather than pointing to anything that is not related to this current debate. Thank you.
The increased administrative overheads affects the running of an organisation. It is also... okay, we'll skip that one. What does administrative overheads mean, you ask? Well, it means that this motion we will be discussing does not give consideration to the administrative cost to the city, the extra staff hours, or perhaps the extra FTE that may be required to accommodate this. Never mind the possible extra stress caused to staff who are already at capacity. Like most organisations, the City of Busselton is running on tight purse strings due to the current economic climate we are in. Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, can I have some order here, please? but I will, yes.
If we put too much workload and pressure on staff, they will leave and we will lose years and years of experience. I don't, in Councillor Ryan's reasons that were written for this particular motion, there was no consideration of this factor and the overall effect of the efficient running of the organisation. I think it is important to remember that the people who work at the city are human beings that sit behind their desk, not robots whose needs and wants is just as important as the mighty councillor. I will be supporting Councillor Love's foreshadowed alternative, which is much simpler and more effective way to disseminate information and refine processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riccelli. Do I have a speaker for? Speaker against? Councillor Kennedy.
Hello. Very good speeches. Mine's not going to be that great, probably. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, I guess I just want to reiterate that I think we're all in agreement that we want more information in regards to the Busselton Jetty, and how we do that, you know, is up to us. And I think Michaela's, Councillor Love's foreshadowed motion to work on that will achieve that, getting more information. I think also one of the key things is with what we've got, you know, we should be able to optimise with what we've got before we jump on to something new, establishing a new committee. And we should really be focusing on changing the content within these groups and committee to focus on what we want to achieve. And speaking with and then adding a layer of bureaucracy, I don't think really achieves that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Do I have a mover for? Speaker for, sorry. Speaker against? I will speak against. And really just to say that Councillor Cox probably summed it up very well with regards to we do have issues of resourcing and what Mr Councillor Kennedy said, those overheads, and we can do things as councillors quite clearly. The conflict of interest does concern me. So, yeah, basically I totally agree with Councillor Cox and what the others have said in their debates. Thank you. Mover for, or we've run through it. So, Speaker for. Right of reply. Oh, sorry, your reserved right to speak, a seconder. Yep, we're good.
Okay, good. Thank you, councillors, for your considered argument. I'll be voting for Councillor Ryan's notice of motion, and I'll tell you the reasons why. One is the general perception of what a committee means versus an advisory group to lay people. So the pub test. So if you go to the pub and you talk about it, generally people will say, oh, a committee's more important than an advisory committee. And the reason I point that out is that we as a council and a community need to be robustly committed to continuous quality improvement. And to that end, recognise the significance of what happened at the end of last year when the state government appointed a project working group for the jetty. So the state government thinks it's important enough to have a project working committee. I think we need to value it enough to make this a formalised committee. I do understand Councillor Cox's argument about resourcing. However, having been involved with this advisory group for 2.5 years and then previously had involvement with this group when I was the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, there's already significant staff resources that go into the jetty because of the licensing. And I remember when I first was involved in the group, there was lots of argy-bargy between the council and the jetty, and it didn't make sense to me because we're all trying to achieve the same thing. But there were things being lost in translation. And I think formalising a committee will hopefully alleviate that. And if I can just digress slightly, being a bit of an economic geek, I'm a bit fascinated with cluster development. What has uniquely happened over the last couple of years after COVID was we really got to have a look now at what our economic drivers are. So the principle of cluster development is look at what naturally occurs in a district and build on that. And it got me thinking about, I went to the Nilgi Cave Ancient Lands experience, and they've got photos on the wall of Perth elite getting on a train and travelling the 4 hours from Perth.
Point of order. Sorry, Councillor Richards, but how does this relate to...
Point of order?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Point
Please
of order.
take a
How
seat.
does any of that last section relate to anything that was brought up in debate? Point.
So, the relevance. So I'd maybe just stick more to the relevance if you
Bear
could,
with me,
Councillor.
I'm getting to the relevance. That the elite of Perth would come down here to have their weddings. 4 hours on a train, 6 hours on a horse and cart to have their wedding in Nilgi Cave and stay at Cave's house. Destination weddings in this region are important and
Sorry,
happen.
we'll get you
so the
to-
jetty, what I'm saying about the relevance of the jetty, since COVID, we've seen the importance of tourism. The jetty are experiencing higher numbers than ever before. And so it points to the relevance of the importance of this icon and us recognising as a council the importance of it and therefore establishing a committee. I do believe it comes down to continuous quality improvement and making sure that we recognise this icon for what it is. So I get that there's different points of view here, but I think the appointment from the state government of a project working group is a significant contributing factor in the state government putting importance on it, and that we too can put the importance of it, of establishing a committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. No?
No, stop clapping. Stop clapping. Stop it.
Your Councillor Ryan, you have a right of reply.
Thank you. Councillors, in response to Councillor Cox, this is a new council. This new council decides. Whatever happened prior to the last election is now on the table and for you all to decide. These people here tonight are the community that we serve, and to be on top of all issues about our biggest asset is extremely important. Administration and resources. Yeah, we have a staffing that's under stress. Of course we do. That's always going to be the case. Whatever department you go to, some will be under stress and some aren't. Unfortunately, when I put up a notice of motion, councillors, when you put up notices of motion, we have to decide whether we have administrative resources or not, and I'm sure the staff will come back to us and tell us that they need more resources in that department. Councillor McNish raised last week in relation to, what's your name? Councillor Kennedy. Sorry, Jared. The issue of briefing sessions. Briefing sessions are not council meetings. They're just briefing sessions. They're for information only. So how does the community get to know what those briefing sessions are, what we're told? How do they get the information if it's not in agendas and minutes? Bureaucracy. Another level of bureaucracy. I'm trying to get rid of the bureaucracy and the level of lack of information going to the community. And on the issue of conflicts, well, how come a previous committee existed? The BJECA. It existed in the form of a committee. How do I know? I used to chair it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Okay, I will now put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Lost 5-4. Thank you. Item,
My alternative is now in play,
sorry.
which I would like to put my alternative in play as written. The reason...
Sorry, Councillor Love. Just
I would
2
like to
seconds.
move this motion.
If you could stand and move your motion.
I'd like to move this alternative motion as written on the
Thank you
screen.
very much. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Cox. Do I have any objections? Councillor McNeish? No, thank you. You can. I just need to know that someone was objecting. Councillor Love, would you like to put forward your motion? Speak to your motion.
I won't take up too much of everyone's time just because I do believe we all covered quite a number of the points as to why it would be beneficial to put in at least my alternative notice of motion since Councillor Ryan's notice of motion lost. I believe that with this alternative motion that we could still achieve what Councillor Ryan was wanting to achieve by retaining the Busselton Jetty reference group, but tightening up some stuff so that elected members are actually receiving more regular and consistent information in regards to what's being discussed at these meetings, and also get the CEO to provide us a review and a report by April this year, just considering the line items 3A, 3B and 3C, so that we can ensure that, there is more consistent information handed to elected members. And I just thought that this would be beneficial rather than just disregarding the reference group altogether, incorporating those changes and not necessarily changing to a committee. And like Councillor Richards did mention, she mentioned 2 different wordings, and I haven't had a chance to look it up myself, but it was a state working group you set up one section and a state working committee. If it's a state working group, then by all means we've got a working group as well. But yeah, and we, so project control group. So it was still a group, not a committee. So we're very much in the same line as that as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Love. Councillor Cox, do you wish to speak as seconder?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll reserve my right.
Okay. Speaker against, and Councillor McNeish.
Could I move an amendment, sir?
You can.
And
foreshadow it.
Well, I could, sorry.
If it's an amendment, you can move it now. It just determines whether it's an amendment.
Is it amendment or alternative?
Well, I'd like to think it's an amendment. That this motion, as proposed, include a 3D, and the D being the legal instruments pertaining to jetty relationships.
Instruments has come back.
It's a broad term. It covers a lease or a licence or a rental or whatever.
It's not overly clear to me what you'd be requesting the CEO to do. So request the CEO undertake a review of the terms of reference, provide a report to the council considering the legal instruments pertaining to the jetty instruments. That doesn't...
To be included in the terms of reference.
Okay. Considering the legal instruments are included in the terms of reference.
Well done.
Or review of the legal instruments.
Well, people had issue with the term review, so I didn't want to jeopardise the need for all parties to clearly understand the legal instruments that apply to this very iconic asset.
Look, I think we can debate it as an amendment and councillors can determine whether or not they wish to have that included as an amendment. So if you wish to move your amendment, so what are you exactly wishing to move? The inclusion of point D worded exactly how? Is that exactly how you want it worded?
Part D, I can't see a part D on the screen. Oh, on the right. Oh, there we go. Legal instruments pertaining to jetty relationships. Jetty commercial relationships? No, not operational. I think a lease and a licence and any rentals is involved in a commercial relationship.
The way it's worded.
Would this not be an alternative to my motion then?
Yeah, look, the way it's worded at the moment, it is quite broad. You're effectively suggesting that the CEO undertake a review of the legal instruments pertaining to the jetty.
Sorry, to put them in the terms of reference. It's the clause I tried to add in the motion that got
given
lost.
that this is, look, I think given that this is only a reference group that's being proposed, it's not a committee of council, I would suggest that it is beyond that of an amendment. So you can foreshadow an alternative, and if this is lost,
If
then
that's the ruling of the chair.
That's my advice. Obviously, it is up to the mayor.
We'll put the motion. We'll put your amendment. Oh, I see. Yeah, no, I think it will be an alternative then. I'm sorry. So you'll have to foreshadow that alternative.
Well, in debate then, I unfortunately would be voting against to foreshadow the complete 1, 2, 3, A, B and C plus a D that perhaps better communicated my desire to have the parties involved in a very important commercial relationship fully understand the instruments, get them out of the drawer, put them on the table, ask the what ifs, see who's exposed, who's insured for what, where the line starts and where the line stops. Because it's a pretty cushy relationship, or cosy relationship that's been going on for a lot of years, and I think it's time that it be reviewed for risk. And a very important part of the terms of reference of whatever committee, reference group, whatever it is. It's an icon asset and it deserves it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a speaker for the alternative? A speaker against? Sorry, as in Michaela, Councillor Love's alternative motion. Speaker for, against, nothing. Do I have the right seconder? Councillor Cox, would you like to? You've reserved your right. Right to speak, okay. Right to reply, Councillor Love?
That's okay, I reserve my right myself.
Okay, therefore I put the 16.1, the alternative motion as put in front of you. All those in favour? All those against? So sorry, we'll just redo that. So that was 5. Okay. So we're voting on what you're seeing in front of the screen. So all those in favour of 16.1, the alternative? Okay. 4, all those against? 5, so Michaela, Councillor Love's motion has been lost. 5-4. Now we put forward Councillor McNeish's alternative.
Thank you, sir. I just commend the importance of everyone from the jetty and from this organisation understanding and having just a good opportunity to go through.
So do you want to put your motion forward?
Sorry, yes. I'll put the motion as...
It's going to be a long day.
As written, sorry.
Just if we've just paused for a second.
Apologies, Councillor McNeish. Just for the page in front of us here, could you just repeat the clause that you're proposing under 3D?
Well, I move Councillor Love's entire alternative with an addition of a 3D that requires the CEO, when reviewing the terms of reference, to necessarily include in that terms of reference the requirement for the governing legal instruments the legal instruments governing the commercial relationships be reviewed for understanding, information, and a proposal of risk. I'd like to put that word in there. Yeah. For an understanding of, oh, sorry. No. Well, I'd like there to be an effective sort of what-if scenario.
Councillor McNish, would you be open to adding to the beginning of that the inclusion of the legal instruments governing the commercial relationships for the purposes of understanding? Is that what you would seeking the CEO to consider, the inclusion of, in the terms of reference, the legal instruments?
I'd like them that clause to be in the term of reference.
Can I have a point of clarification? I'm still not sure what Councillor McNish is trying to achieve with this.
Well, we could just defer, so we understand. We can understand what this motion is about. Okay, sure. Okay, I'm going to call a 5-minute adjournment so we can clarify what Councillor McNish is trying to achieve. So 5 minutes, please, councillors. If councillors can return to their seats, please. Still saying 32, isn't it? Thank you, councillors, staff, members of the gallery. I'll restart this meeting at 7:32. Councillor McNeish, if you would like to move your alternative foreshadowed motion.
Move as written on the screen. Well done to the people who helped to do that.
Thank you very much. Let's all just have a quick read of that. Do I have a seconder for that? I have a seconder, Councillor Love. I do apologise, it's been a long day. And do I have any opposition? Seeing I have no opposition, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried 9 now. This is how council works. Well done. Congratulations. 16.1, foreshadowed alternative. Next item, notice of motion for council meeting schedules. 16.2, Councillor Ryan has advised me that she's withdrawing this motion. Is that correct? Therefore, that has been removed. Item 16.3, notice of motion for the Jetty Reserve Fund. Again, Councillor Anne Ryan. Sorry, I'm just waiting for quiet. The council has received this motion from Councillor Ryan as displayed on the screen. Councillor, would you like to move your motion?
As moved.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kennedy. Do I have any objections? I have no objections, therefore I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. Move on to item 16.4, notice of motion, the Vass River Committee. Councillor Anne Ryan received this motion as displayed in front of you. There is some small changes there. Would you like to put your motion, please, Councillor Ryan?
As displayed on the screen, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Richards. Do I have any dissent? Yes, I do. Councillor Michaela Love. Okay. Councillor Ryan, would you like to move your motion, please?
Councillors, the standing orders, 5.83, albeit in part, states, a notice of motion must relate to the good governance of the district and must be within the lawful responsibilities of the council. Our current strategic plan, key theme 4, leadership, says a council that connects with its community and is accountable in its decision making. I believe, and so do our many concerned community members, that the creation of a committee is aligned with that clause. This notice of motion emanates from my desire to fully inform the community on what the City of Busselton, that includes the council, not just staff, and the state agencies, what is actually being done in an effort to fix the Vass River. An independent review of the current and future management of water assets in the Geograph catchment was conducted by Professor Barry Hart in March 2014, in which he wrote, "Current management of the lower Vass River, and particularly the lake section of the Busselton, in Busselton, is far from ideal. There is no comprehensive management plan and no obvious lead agency. Hence, the recommendation, the city committed to be the interim asset manager for the lower Vass River, and most respondents, 73%, saw the city as being the lead agency for managing the waterways. Recommendation 6 of Professor Hart's report stated that the lead agency for each of the water-related assets report annually to the community on both the asset condition, health, and effectiveness of management. What happened to that recommendation? The river is one of the biggest natural assets, and it is simply an appalling mess. If you look out the window, we are spending $500,000 on a park to honour our servicemen and women next to a cyanobacterial toilet. A simple Google search will bring up a myriad of papers on the links to motor neurone disease and neurological issues. We can no longer just stick our head in the sand and say, "Barleys." This is willful blindness. Remember when smoking used to be good for you. Councillors, do you know what's being done in relation to the river? You signed up for your role as a councillor, which I reiterated at item 16.1. In May last year, the council agreed to disband the advisory group, which I didn't support, but it was agreed to continue to be the asset manager, but is contingent upon continuing technical and financial support from the state government. No argue, it is the state's asset. The problem is the community is not getting the information. And have we really tried everything to ensure the restoration of the river? Malcolm Robb, who is an expert on FOSLOC and a Vass Task Force member, is on record as stating FOSLOC is simply a band-aid solution. How successful was stage 1 and 2 of the dredging? What went wrong? What went right? What was the outcome of the FOSLOCing? Where are the notices that should be erected when the Health Department notifies the city of dangerous cyanobacterial levels? Has there been any success in the reduction of toxic cyanobacterial growth with the latest FOSLOCing? Yes, I am a Vass Task Force member. I have been thwarted at every pass on trying to simply have a company with state-of-the-art technology, addresses on Zoom, on nanobubbles, a company who is working throughout Australia and the world. I also do not believe the information flow to the general public is sufficient in that forum. Instead, frustration abounds both from myself and members of the community. This is what ozone, similar to nanobubbles, can do. These are the same water samples that Dr. Dickey and I took out of the
Struggling with
river.
the relevance here around forming a committee.
Sorry, please sit, take a seat.
And this is what
Councillor
can be
Ryan,
achieved.
Councillor Ryan, please.
Sure.
Relevance? This is around forming a committee.
Well, I must have...
We're not arguing over
yeah.
cyanobacteria or toxins here.
We
We're arguing
are.
about
The
the
motions-
reasons for forming a
Thank
committee.
you. I will actually uphold that because this is about the motion in front of us that is to establish a Bass River
I
Committee.
understand that.
That comprises
This is what I'm suggesting
the
can be
terms of
done when you
reference.
try.
So,
I'll leave it there. You can have a look at it.
thank you, Councillor Ryan. You have
The strategic
30
objective
seconds remaining.
in 2019 was the health and attractiveness of our waterways and wetlands is improved to enhance the community amenity. Both objectives have still not been achieved. Professor Hart's report noted there have been increasing community concerns with a link between cyanobacteria and neurodegenerative diseases. That statement was made in 2014. We have a duty of care to our residents, and I will no longer accept that we cannot do anything. In an email exchange just prior to the Christmas break, we were notified that what we are looking at following the FOSLOCking was cyanobacterial. When questioned what evidence was provided for that statement, there was none. I received a message this afternoon that the FOSLOC area is at an alert level by the Health Department and 10 times the level
Councillor
outside
Ryan,
the city offices.
ask the wrap up.
I'm nearly finished. This does not give me comfort, nor would it, I am sure, to any member of the public that has to breathe this in every day. In closing, Professor Hart's report quoted, supplied by the late, great Jocelyn Elphick. Somebody said that it couldn't be done, but he, with a chuckle, replied that maybe it couldn't be, but he would be the one who wouldn't say so until he tried. So he buckled right in with a trace of a grin. If he worried, he hid it. He started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it.
Thank you,
Loosely
Councillor
translated, that means if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Councillors, I urge you to vote for this motion.
I will ask you to leave if this continues. I won't accept this, sorry. Councillor Richards.
I'll reserve my right. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Do I have a speaker against? Councillor Michaela Glove.
I agree that establishing a committee to foster communication with the community and stakeholders on matters associated with the water quality, health and management of the Lower Bass River in replacement of the disbanded advisory working group would be beneficial to the city in ensuring that there is a two-way process for community engagement. Council committees are a commonly used method of engagement, and given that the city's wetlands and waterways are significant community assets which generate a lot of community interest, I do believe it is logical to establish this committee to identify practical and implementable actions to sustainably improve our waterways. Although I will be foreshadowing an alternative, once again, to Councillor Ryan's notice of motion, as I believe it's important to incorporate Toby Inlet into the group's focus, and this would address the broader environmental concerns of our region and align with the previous council resolution to disband the Lower Bass River Advisory Group. Toby Inlet has been identified by the VAS Task Force as a waterway that the city is also an interim asset manager of, as Toby Inlet also faces water quality issues as well. And I believe it would be remiss of the council to not incorporate this waterway into this new committee. I've also made administrational changes in my alternative to Councillor Ryan's wording on point 4 of her notice of motion, purely administrational, and I've also made further administrational changes just to clarify that the community members of the committee may nominate to be reappointed to their role following an ordinary council election, I'd also suggested including that the council members appointed to this committee will be required to agree to adhere to the City of Busselton Code of Conduct for council members, committee members and candidates as advised in the terms of reference of the Audit and Risk Committee. I also proposed changes to the wordings of clause 5.2, if you go back up, J, yep, just to change will to may, essentially, and have it as like an open standing invitation to those partnering agencies and stakeholders, just as it may not be necessary for them to come to every meeting. And I have reduced the meeting schedule to a minimum of 2 times a year, although in consideration we can bring in more meetings as required. I just thought that given where it is at the moment, 2 meetings might be adequate for now, and as things progress we may need more meetings or
Okay, if you can, thank you, Michaela. Councillor Love, do I have a speaker for?
I'm actually going to speak for this because I forgot you'd moved the amendment.
Sorry, it's still on your debate at the moment.
That's fine, but just know that I'll be voting against mine and voting for yours.
Thank you. Do I have a speaker for? The motion which is in front of us, which is Councillor Ryan's original notice of motion for the Bass River Committee, just to be clear. So you wish to speak for it? No? Do we have sorry, Councillor McNeish.
This will test the process, but I was going to ask to move an amendment to the current motion, and understanding it may well be lost, but that's fine. But I'll take this opportunity to move the amendment, because if it's classed as an amendment and the amendment's carried and that gets moved on to Councillor Ryan's motion that then gets lost, I will then be getting up to try and move the amendment to have it included in Councillor Love's. So I just thought I'd give you a little entree, because I was pretty ordinary with the words before. Thanks for the help, but my amendment would be, and you can rule, sir, on it if you think it's an amendment or not, to add to the terms of reference to section 2, a 2.8 that would read, drafting a strategy for approaching the Minister for the state to resume its lead role and take immediate responsibility for restoring the Bass River to a safe and amenable condition in a timely manner.
Can you put the terms of reference on this?
We're not rushing tonight. I'm not rushing.
Sir, do you want me to repeat that?
We're going to look at the terms of reference. I tell you, the past mayor never had this much fun. Councillor Ryan, could you please return to your seat? We're not adjourned. No, we haven't adjourned. Okay. So,
So to support my case, I'm only suggesting one small clause on an already, 2.7 clauses of the terms of reference. So I would argue that it was suitably an amendment.
So could you repeat it?
Drafting a strategy for approaching the Minister for the state to resume its lead role and take immediate responsibility for the restoring the Vass River to a safe and amenable condition in a timely manner. So the group to draft the strategy, and then it would come to the council anyway. State to resume its lead role and take immediate responsibility.
But also take into account
Take immediate responsibility for restoring the Vass River to a safe and amenable condition in a timely manner.
Point of clarification, I don't necessarily disagree, but it's developing a strategy, it's not an amendment.
It's adding one point to the objective.
I'm going to I'm taking advice from the acting
I guess, look,
CEO.
my advice, and obviously this is for the Mayor to determine, I guess my advice is
Order
that,
in the chamber, please. Thank you.
by putting this in the terms of reference, you are, I guess, almost binding the council to a position that the Minister that the state should resume its lead role, and I'm not sure that that's a decision that the council has made. So if you were looking to put something along those lines in, I would probably recommend the objective of the committee be to further consider the city's role as interim asset manager. So that could be an objective, that the committee considers the city's role as part of its terms of reference, but certainly what you've written there almost makes a decision that we want the state to take that role back, and I don't think that's appropriate as an amendment.
The intent is there, but...
Well, thank you for the advice. It is only to draft a strategy, and then the council would then decide what it would then do with the strategy. There's some wise collective heads on the group, and they could...
I'm going to say that's going to have to be foreshadowed as an alternative.
And if you're willing to change it to be, consider its position as an interim asset manager.
Well, for the sake of everyone here tonight going home early, I'll consider your revised words, Acting CEO, having made my intent reasonably clear, and I hope it added some value.
Okay, so would you like to add an amendment still, which is along the lines of to consider the city's position as interim asset manager, or would you like to not move an amendment at all? Look, I think if it's just adding to consider the city's role as an interim asset manager, I believe
Still
that could be
something that could be
moved as an
discussed
amendment.
in the first meeting.
Okay, so Councillor McNish is moving an amendment to add an additional clause of 2.8, which reads, one of the objectives of the committee is to consider the city's position as the interim asset manager, so to consider. He will need a seconder for that.
Point of clarification for me, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with this, but I do not see this as an amendment. This is taking a position.
Still need to be voted on.
Yeah. Look, it doesn't negate, as I said, the original intent, but it does make an amendment. So this would only be, if we're going to now vote on this as an amendment, moving forward. We'll vote on this amendment. If not, it returns to the original that Councillor Ryan has put forward. Then we would vote on that, and if that were to fail, then we would go to Councillor Love's alternative. So I need a seconder for Councillor McNeish's amendment 2.8. So you're seconding it, so
You're just voting on the amendment at the
you're,
moment.
you're
just the
that's all. So you're voting on the amendment. Okay. Do we have, therefore I put, sorry? Yeah, is there any opposition? There is opposition.
Are you debating this?
Okay, so Councillor Manish, you can talk to your amendment.
Thank you for classing it, sir, as an amendment. I was bewildered to try and determine the reason why the city was appointed, if I can use that word, as the lead manager. And I think it's timely, given the passage of time, that be re-examined in terms of effectiveness and what could be done if the state were taking responsibility for the asset as they do elsewhere. So it's just a timely consideration that the committee or the group should have that discussion.
Do I have a seconder who would like to speak to that?
I reserve my right of reply.
Speaker against?
As I said, I don't necessarily disagree with this, and I've actually brought that up in my arguments. However, I don't believe it should be included in the terms of reference under objectives. It's something that can be discussed throughout, but I don't believe it should be included in there, and that's why I'm voting against.
Speaker for? Speaker against? So we are, just to be clear, we are now, all we are doing is debating on this 2.8 amendment to this item. So if you want to include it or not, that's what you're voting on. Is there anyone against? For? Would you like to reserve your right to?
Yes, I'll still reserve my right of
Well,
reply, please.
you won't speak to it. Would you like your right of reply? Okay, therefore I put forward the amendment in front of you, 2.8, to consider the city's position as an interim asset manager. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried 7-2. So the amendment, now we will return to the really testing. We are now returning to the original, the amended motion in front of you, 16.4, and now I'm looking for, so last we had Andrew speak, so I'm looking, do we have anybody to speak against this? Councillor Riccelli.
Mr Mayor, I'm not going to put up with any jeering, please. Firstly, I've already shared my concerns regarding the administrative overheads produced from forming another committee, and I do not agree that this is good governance, rather that it will lead to inefficient use of staff time, reducing their capacity to attend to other priorities. I also wish to, remind Council that we are voting for the formation of a committee. We're not voting as to how much we care about the Lower Vass River. I wouldn't have put my hand up to chair the Lower Vass River if I didn't care about the quality of it. This was already put to Council and voted on last year with a resolution result of 8-1, because the committee had served its purpose and a wider community engagement process was optimal for the future. That was the resolution. The Lower Vass River Management Advisory Group was set up to primarily provide input and advice around the implementation of the Lower Vass River Waterway Management Plan. It was agreed by the LVR MAG that the initial phase commenced with sediment removal, which was to occur in 3 stages. The outcomes need to be assessed and determined after the completion of the third sediment removal before any further decisions can or should be made. As I've said many a time, you cannot introduce too many measures at once, as how do you determine which has provided what outcomes? Once outcomes have been determined, there will be community engagement developed that attempts to engage more than just a handful of very involved community members. While well intended, these messages are not reaching the wider community. I too question whether the city should continue as the interim asset manager. While well intended and actually admirable at the time, I've always felt that it has allowed state government to shirk their responsibilities, and more pressure and advocacy should have gone towards forcing more active involvement from the state. It should be remembered that the city actually has no authority under the Water Agencies Powers Act in relation to the management of the river. The vast task force is the overarching decision maker in relation to the management of this waterway and has parliamentary oversight. Perhaps our energy should be directed towards more robust communication with the vast task force instead. Thirdly, while chairing this committee, it was brought to my attention and the attention of city staff that many of the committee members representing the relevant agencies were feeling bullied and unsafe in the meetings. Choosing to stay quiet rather than enter into healthy debate or discussion. It is certainly very concerning when it comes to the point that people are afraid to speak out due to fear of reprisal and vilification on social media. Certainly something I've experienced myself. I don't believe any of the key agency representatives would willingly put their hand up for this again, and possibly not even as a guest speaker. If the council does decide to go ahead with the committee, then I ask you to at least support Councillor Love's foreshadowed alternative, which lightens the load on staff with only 2 to 3 meetings a year, and suggests including Toby Inlet, which, as we all know, has similar toxic algae problems and is just as deserving of attention. However, I hope that my previous reasons will influence you not to vote in favour of forming a committee in this instance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riccelli. Do I have a speaker for? Speaker against? Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My intention is to vote against this motion. First, a disclaimer that this is a complex, long-term issue, and as a new councillor, it's been difficult to absorb all of the information within the last 2 weeks. However, this may be refreshing to zoom out and have a look at a new perspective. First, we must consider if re-establishing a group within the City of Busselton will positively contribute to the restoration of the river, and it's something that we all want. My understanding as the City of Busselton as an interim asset manager is that is effective in implementing the strategies, not establishing the strategies. And that is more effectively done by the state. Departments such as DWER and our representation on the vast task force. And considering that, I commend Councillor McNish's amendment to approach the state and get clarification of us as an interim asset manager. So this avenue towards the state, I believe, we should be supporting and exploring. Establishing another group will detract from the prior commitment to the community engagement model, which will allow the greater public to become better informed. Considering tonight's questions at questions time from Susan and Vern, I think those questions would be answered if we focused on that community engagement model. And also, it may encourage the public to get the state agencies to take more action. Summing up, my intention is to vote against the re-establishment of the VAS committee group, and I'm in favour of focusing our resources on the continuation and successful implementation of current strategies, such as the sediment removal. The community engagement model, so the public can become more informed, and investigating strategies through our state representation in the VAS task force. And I believe by doing this, we'll get some long-term wins for the river again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Do I have a speaker for? A speaker against? I will speak against and only on a few items. And again, very well spoken. And thank you, Councillor Kennedy, for your comments. Someone said this evening, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. We've tried this. The committee didn't work. I'm totally supportive of a view that we do need to get somebody else responsible. But as council and as a representative of the community, we do need to stand up and put forward some smart ideas to how this can be done, and that other people can be accountable rather than us being accountable. So therefore, I will not be voting in this motion, and I would like to see the alternative, should it come up, as the favourable one. But now I would like to add something, because we also heard about the Wannerup today. So if we're going to talk about the Vass River and the Toby Inlet, should we also be considering the lady who spoke earlier about the Wannerup issues with the water? So, but anyway, that's for consideration if you wish to add something to your alternative. Thank you. If we have no more speakers for, I will offer Councillor Richards her opportunity as seconder to speak.
Thank you. World over, managing waterways is complex and multifaceted. We're not Robinson Crusoe, meaning that there are studies, research papers, theses and solutions to be identified from agencies across the world. So I just wanted to state that, but I think we all know that. I agreed to disbanding the Lower Bass River Management Advisory Group because I felt it wasn't achieving acceptable outcomes associated with the risks to the city and the community. It was in May 23, and still is my opinion, that a formal committee would be better equipped to liaise with other stakeholders who have the expertise to advise on best practice to ensure the future health of the Lower Bass River. We are very fortunate that we have community involvement by people who are specialists, experienced and incredibly knowledgeable in this area, and we would be foolish to not have them included on this committee. Given that our Deputy Mayor sits on the VAS Task Force, which is a parliamentary appointment, I'm hoping there will be greater opportunity to explore remedies. And as we've heard, staff have advised VAS Task Force is the overarching decision maker. I also expect the Audit and Risk Committee will be fairly interested in the risk associated with the health of the Lower Bass River, which I think is something we need to take into consideration. And I feel having this committee will better inform both city staff and council. I do acknowledge the increased resourcing this committee will require. However, I do also acknowledge the priority of the health of the Lower Bass River, and I will be voting for Councillor Love's alternative.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan, would you have your right to reply? This is going to be interesting.
Yes. I don't understand the wider community engagement thing. When the VAS advisory group was engaged, there was information being disseminated out into the community. Since then, the engagement strategy, I think we heard before Christmas that was a meeting on and nobody knew about it. If Mr Sims didn't know, well, we have a problem, Houston. This committee, if established, could refer items to the VAS Task Force. I alone did not have that power and the pushback was enormous. So a committee can direct and give information or requests to the VAS Task Force. The sediment removal is a given. Everyone agrees it needs to be done. And, Mayor, I'm sorry, but the VAS Wannerup is not ours to look after. It's another agency. So ours is just the Toby's Inlet and the VAS River.
Thank you, Councillor.
And I'll be voting against my motion because I'll be voting for Councillor Love's.
Thank you. I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour of the motion in front of you, which is 16.4, with that amendment. All those in favour? All those against? Fantastic. 9-0. So it's lost. We now move over to, would you like to move your alternative motion 16.4? Just move your motion.
I'll wait for it to get
Sure,
up on
yeah,
screen.
Sorry.
And I will, once it's up on screen,
And then we need to add your full share. All right.
so I will move this as written. However, if you go further down, there would be an administrative change. Go slightly back up. I would need to remove I, as we had discussed it during the agenda briefing, that's not technically able to be implemented.
Just a point of clarification, at 7.1 you've said the committee. Is it still classed the committee or the advisory group?
No, I am wanting it to establish it as a committee.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, can we just scroll to the top then? I'd like everyone to be clear on what we are.
Just a question.
Certainly. Councillor Ryan?
What are we going to call the committee?
I had just tacked on Toby Inlet, but I had been pondering this last night if we even wanted it as like a waterway committee, waterway management committee.
Yep, sure.
Happy to change that to waterway management committee.
WMC. Just checking it didn't do anything. Western Mining. Yeah. Yeah, well, he could debate, but yeah. Look, we could go into further debate and read, but Councillor McNeish brought up a point that he wanted to add, which was the...
I am happy to add in Councillor McNeish's amendment that was previously discussed, though I concur with Councillor Ryan about your amendment including VAS Wannerup Estuary. They actually have an asset manager, the VAS Estuary Technical Working Group, and I believe that should be beneficial. However, I'm open to looking at that at a later date, incorporating that at a later date.
Are councillors happy that they...
Councillor Love, just to confirm, the alternative motion that you are moving is as per what's on the screen?
Yes, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for this alternative foreshadowed? Councillor Ryan, do I have any objections? Councillor Love, do you wish to speak to your motion?
To directly quote from the Revitalising Geographic Waterways webpage, in the past, Toby Inlet became stagnant and smelly in summer months with poor water quality due to seepage from septic tanks, reduced flows and sediments and nutrients off the catchment. Algal blooms were a regular occurrence during summer and adversely affected the ecological function and recreational use of this inlet. I believe that extending the committee's focus to include the Toby Inlet appears to be a sensible approach to addressing comprehensive environmental concerns, as both water bodies are vital components of our local environment. And this aligns with the previous council resolution to disband the Lower Vass River Advisory Group. Effective communication engagement is crucial in ensuring community members are actively involved in the decision-making process. It promotes transparency and accountability, which in turn increases trust between the community and organisations. It has been noted about the community engagement model, which had been implemented in, I believe, November. However, I had received feedback, and I had even noticed personally that this community workshop hosted had been primarily as an information workshop and didn't actually allow a two-way engagement process. And council committees can be a great way to facilitate community engagement to improve the local community members' knowledge, increasing the likelihood of projects or solutions becoming widely accepted. Councillors have raised concerns in relation to the crossover that this committee would potentially have with the VAS task force if there would be an effective level of representation of partner agencies and other stakeholders. Whether the city should in fact be the interim asset manager for both the Lower Vass River and Toby Inlet, given that these waterways are actually Crown-owned land. I will try to address each of these issues. The VAS Task Force is a Western Australian government initiative to improve the water quality, waterway health and management of geographic waterways. The task force has representation from state and local government, water services providers and catchment groups. It provides direction and support to the lead agencies responsible for delivering projects, addresses broader issues and reports to the community on the outcomes of activities designed to improve waterway health. I believe the functionality of this committee should essentially be a subgroup of the VAS task force to foster open communication between the community and stakeholders on matters associated with the Lower Vass River and Toby Inlet, and to assist the city in implementing the waterway management plans for both Toby Inlet and the Lower Vass River. As stated earlier, in establishing this committee, this would improve local community members' knowledge, promoting trust between the city and the community. Instead of requiring that representatives of partner agencies and other stakeholders have to attend these every meeting, I propose that these representatives have a standing open invitation instead. Over time, I'm optimistic that this committee will be able to rebuild and strengthen the relationships between these key stakeholders. The VAS Task Force reiterates the City of Busselton's position as the interim asset manager for both the Toby Inlet and the Lower Vass River, although I'm more than happy to bring that into the terms of reference to review that. And I just referred to Mr. Needham's report in May as to why the city is still of the position of being an interim asset management, and which was that the two waterways are important to the city and the communities. There are no clear or simple answers to who is responsible, but if the city doesn't play a significant role, the answer may be that no one takes responsibility, which I'm sure nobody here would want that. And the city is showing a commitment and sending a message to the state about the importance of these issues, acknowledging that the state needs to play their part too. I copied that verbatim, but I just wanted to reiterate as to why it is important that we are doing something until we can get the state on board anyway.
5 seconds over. You could have. Thank you, Councillor Love. Seconder is Councillor Ryan. Do you wish to?
I'd like to reserve my right.
Thank you. Do I have a speaker against?
My reasons remain the same, but I do commend Councillor Love on some of her aspects.
Thank you. Do I have a speaker for? Speaker against?
Yeah, I've said everything before, but I guess just clarifying, I did ask the question in the debrief to Councillor Ryan, if establishing this committee would assist in, creating strategies and securing funding through the VAS task force. And hopefully this committee will do that. That's what we've got the option. We establish this committee and hopefully that backs the task force, or should we have just put all our resources into the VAS task force? So wherever we go, hopefully I'm sure we'll get there.
Speaker for? Speaker against? I'm only going to speak against this because I'm concerned of putting up a committee, and I will actually vote for it. But I just hope that the community understands that we do want to fix this problem. I don't want it to be there anymore. If it is unsafe, if it is green, if it is nasty, we do want to do it. I guess my pushback has been what we've tried before has not worked, and I would like to see a different approach. Hopefully, working with this new committee, we can do that. But I ask that the public join us, don't fight us. And we all, I think everyone here is saying they want to sort this river out. That's all I'm saying. And if we fight each other, it's going to be too hard. And I just hope that we can work together and maybe new slate, and let's get this done. And I need the community on our side. Thank you. Do I have a speaker for? Right. Sorry. Do you wish to speak? Second. Yes. Your seconder.
Just
please.
quickly, I think everyone will agree with me that Councillor Love was outstanding tonight in what she said, and you'd make a great councillor. The VAS task force, Councillor Kennedy, was that your name? It doesn't work that way. I had no power. I could say what I liked till the cows came home. There's an agenda that went out that said, does anybody want to put up anything on the agenda? And I was told I couldn't do that. So why am I there? And I'm sure the community understands, Mayor, that we all have the same goal in mind. The previous things that have been done, like aeration, that's old technology. I've seen nanobubbles work. I have seen so much information on the net, and it'll be one of the things that I will be taking to this committee. And I urge councillors to support Councillor Love's notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Love, you have your right of reply.
I'll forego my right of reply.
Thank you. Therefore, I put the motion, which is the amended alternative recommendation, which is in front of you with the addition of... Yep, that'll do. All those in favour? All those against? 7-2. The motion has passed 7-2. Congratulations. Okay, thank you.
Can I just raise a question? Do we now have to vote on who wants to be on that committee?
We will need to put a report.
Yeah. No. Okay, moving on. So we move on to item 16.5, which is a notice of motion for the City Busselton planning approach. Councillor Andrew McNeish, would you like to put your motion?
Put the motion as written.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ryan. Do I have any opposition? Councillor Cox. Councillor McNeish, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, sir. I was very encouraged to know or to learn that when this notice of motion was forwarded up to the WAPC, they've responded by saying they'll come down pretty well at the earliest opportunity to talk with the city. And I guess in receiving that news, I talked to the director here and said, what would be the best approach for that? And he said, just be all ears, to be open to how she explains that the WAPC have arrived at this point, given that the council had voiced its concerns in March last year about being, well, basically excluded from the process. And we're not talking about a small matter here. We're talking about the protection of our lifestyle, the protection of the characteristics we live in and enjoy and love in our various settlement nodes within the district, to prevent sprawl, to prevent high-rise on the coast where it's unwanted. It's been expressed that way, particularly during the campaign that I experienced. It was very close to people's hearts that they wanted to protect what they had. So we are a very popular district. We are under population expansion pressures, and we'll never be able to stop that, and arguably why would we? It's about managing that. So if we can protect our settlement nodes and the characteristics thereof, as identified by the people within those nodes, and ideally get a designed population that we can work our asset planning around and give some certainty about how many cricket pitches or football fields or how much parking or whatever, then we have to work out where the future 50 years of people are going to go. And I would like to think that we would have a strong voice in those considerations. And the way to have that happen is to engage very closely with the WAPC. So we need to invite them down. They've accepted. That's great. We need to have a workshop. Councillor Cox suggested it was a great suggestion. After they come down and we're all ears, we work out then what we want to do about it and how to move forward. So I commend this to you. It's an important step, and it needs to be done sooner rather than later. And as I say, I'm very happy that the WAPC have recognised that and are coming down.
Thank you, Councillor McNeish. Councillor Ryan, do you wish to?
I'll reserve my right, thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a speaker against? Councillor Cox.
Okay, councillors, I'm going to have some fun with this one because there's as many holes in this as there is in a block of Swiss cheese.
Please.
Councillors, I'm urging you to oppose this motion to allow for some more time to draft something that will be significantly more palatable to the WAPC. Whilst I don't disagree with much of Councillor McNish's sentiment towards future strategic planning for this region, we will only potentially get one shot at approaching the WAPC, so let's make sure that we do it properly. Yes, the city has one of the fastest rates of growth in WA at nearly 4% per annum. This rate of growth requires high priority to be placed on strategic planning to address a number of emerging challenges. Further urban growth must be sustainably managed. So yes, I do agree with the intent of Councillor McNish's motion. However, I do not agree with the process or the wording. And on that matter, a little bit of punctuation probably wouldn't have gone astray here too, because some of the sentences don't actually make sense. I digress. If we are to approach the WAPC, we need to be very clear and concise as to what our objectives are, and I've already made this very clear to Councillor McNish. If our intent is to get the WAPC to review the Lewin Naturalist Sub-Regional Strategy and for them to include amendments, we need to put forward a compelling argument. One that is informed by the planning officers, councillors and the community. Yes, we need to hold a workshop, that was my idea. And yes, we need to engage in dialogue with the WAPC, but Councillor Nish is putting the cart before the horse here, people. We should not be putting pressure on our new planning director, who's been here 5 minutes, to immediately go forth and try to conquer the WAPC. Yes, our new planning director might have a great relationship with the WAPC, but the City of Busselton does not. How can we expect the new director to go and engage in dialogue with the WAPC when he's not actually even himself aware of what the issues are that we're dealing with here? And I would suspect, councillors, that the director has other more pressing priorities that need to be urgently addressed within the planning department, rather than running off and writing reports and going to the WAPC. And secondly, as I've mentioned, how can he be expected to go and advocate to the WAPC on our behalf if he's not fully cognisant of the issues that need to be addressed? Councillor McNish states in the motion that the WAPC is to make comment on the following town planning sentiment that is supported for the future direction of the City of Busselton local town planning scheme. Supported by who? Supported by the council, the community, the planning officers? And who, pray tell, supports the establishment of a new city south or adjacent to Vass? Is this actually an aspiration of the community? Has this been identified through community consultation, or is this just Councillor McNish arrogantly telling us that we're going to have a
Councillor, please.
That we are going to have a new city south of Vass? It's news to me. Again, I feel like we're being asked to ratify a motion to be urgently implemented that has no substance or evidence supporting its intent. Councillor 101, motions need to be well-informed, balanced and conducive to effective decision-making. This is not an issue we should be taking lightly. This motion, drafted by Councillor McNish, is too premature. It lacks any depth of knowledge or thorough research. Yet it concerns matters of the utmost strategic importance. Therefore, councillors, I suggest you oppose this motion and we go back to the drawing board with this issue and give it the careful consideration and due diligence it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Do I have a speaker for? Speaker against? Councillor Riccelli.
Thank you. I'll keep this short. It's been a very long night, so I will keep this very brief. I concur with what Councillor Cox has reiterated, and just want to sum up some of her main points. That yes, while I also agree with the intent, Councillor McNish, behind what you are proposing, it appears more to me like a grand gesture than a well thought out proposal. I agree that relationships in the past with the WAPC have been somewhat strained, for want of a mild word. We do need to approach them with a compelling argument and clear objectives. And I also agree that our new planning director needs time to be fully briefed on all the local planning concerns so that when we do have this conversation and workshop with the WAPC, he's not out of his depth. He feels very comfortable and understands what the main community concerns are with a lot of our planning issues throughout the region. We also do not yet have an answer from our Minister with regards to our precinct structure plan and all our suggested amendments. So I suggest that we actually wait to hear what the decisions are from that before we even consider going forward and having any more workshops or discussions. I agree with Councillor Cox. We've got one shot at this. Our relationships in the past with the WAPC have been really appalling. So I would like to really give some considered thought as to how we approach this with a fully briefed new planning director on board that can support us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riccelli. Do I have a speaker for? Speaker against? Try not to speak too much, but look, I do speak against this. Councillor McNeish, fully supportive in a sense of your intent, and I believe that, you know, the community has talked about this urban sprawl. We've got issues with infrastructure. We need to consider where things are going to go. But as you said, one of the things when I went for mayor is about working collectively with council to work on strategy. This is something that has come up in front of us. It is one councillor's view that we are now forced to make a decision in a very closed or open, but a quick 5-minute speech debate on whether we're making a big decision about something that we want to put in front of the WAPC. We've had issues before with the Dunsborough precinct structure plan, where we just went in flat-footed and said, right, it's 3 stories flat, and my view, what we've basically heard from Peter Kyle would witness that they have said, no way, you're 6 stories. They don't listen to us. And I think we need to be very strategic. We need to work out what we're doing. We need to tie it in with the demands of tourism, the demands of affordable housing, where we have the infrastructure. And I believe that we should at first, as council, sit down and work out what we want to achieve, and then work with the officers, and then work with the corresponding departments. And like you said, let the new Director of Community Planning get his feet on the ground, understand what the problems are. I'm not saying it's not ever, but it's not today. And I just feel that councillors need to be mindful, A, of the situation in our current department planning, B, that yes, let's have the WAPC come down and have an open conversation with them, but let's not start setting the rules and telling them what we think we should be doing. And I just believe that the timing is not quite now. I would like the council to be strategic, to sit down and work collectively towards an understanding of what Councillor McNeish is trying to achieve. So that, therefore, I will be voting against this, but not necessarily in the future. Thank you. Do I have a speaker for? Councillor Ryan, do you wish to?
Yeah, just a few notes that I've picked up on. I believe without Councillor McNish's notice of motion, it's my understanding that the WAPC were forging ahead, making changes that we weren't going to necessarily be comfortable with. So I applaud him for actually contacting WAPC and chatting with them about the issue. And I also believe that Councillor McNish has spoken at length with our new Director of Planning, and that he's quite supportive of this. And that it is only that the council formally approaches the WAPC and requests to make comment. It doesn't say that we have to. And also WAPC, its authorised representatives, to be invited to attend and brief the council on the above. What's wrong with that?
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillor McNish, your right of reply.
Thank you, sir. Yes, thanks, Councillor Ryan. Yes, I was a bit disappointed, I guess, about the negativity. Nice to be thanked for getting on the front foot and trying to deliver to the community what it wants, or what it certainly expressed to me in no uncertain terms. And by doing that, by associating ourselves closely, inviting the WAPC down, the director saying, yes, what a good idea, let's be all ears to hearing where they're coming from, what they've been working on for nearly a year or more. Time is critical on this, and the opportunity has existed now. We have secured, fortunately, a director with an excellent working relationship with the WAPC, and that will bode well in our favour in discussions, I'm hoping, when this gets up in 2 weeks' time. If this doesn't get up, I suggest I'll probably cancel the meeting. Why would they come down if we can't show support for this and getting them down? So we're all open to asking them their rationale for their different investigation areas and how they put it all together, get the interagency triggers that we're told that they act upon in formulating their plans. And we convey to them simply thank you very much, and we're very, very motivated to become involved very closely in determining the lifestyle and the type of settlement patterns for our community for the next, 50 years, because that's how long these things take once they get in place and start the planning starts. So then we go into it, we're all ears, we gain the information, we go into the workshop, absolutely, we have a deep dive, good words, into the strategic stuff.
Sorry, stick to the right of reply, if you may. Thank you.
I'm delivering on the right of reply. So to you saying that we need to be strategic about this, well, that's exactly what we cover in the workshop. That is part of this notice of motion. Okay, and then after that, we then determine how best to proceed. I mean, it's not that hard. So I commend this to you to get it started straight away and deliver something of substance to our community, whereas in the previous year, we don't have a voice with the WAPC. Where have they been? Where have we been on this one? Yes, it hasn't been good. So let's amend that straight away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Point of clarification, Mr Mayor.
Certainly. Clarification.
I don't wish to put the new Director of Planning on the spot. However, two councillors have mentioned in their debate that the new director was supportive of this motion, and I would just like to clarify if that is in fact the case, because it could be misleading to other councillors if they've stated that in their debate, and that is not actually the case.
Certainly. Sorry.
May I say that point of clarification? So I think it's quite important in the debate that you could be misleading councillors if that is or is not the case.
Councillor Cox.
Through Mr Mayor, it's probably a similar sentiment. I agree with the sentiment. I think the priority is the relationship with the department and the WAPC, and the intention to invite them down is the first step in having that better relationship. So I think my intention would be, regardless of the outcome of this motion, I think that the department should still come down and do a presentation and give us their thoughts on why they have made some of the decisions they've made in the Law Naturalist strategy. From there, though, it then needs considerable amount of work on how do you formulate the future for the city, which would certainly involve a workshop with council, but also will require extensive community consultation. So I think the intent is supported. It's a process. It's going to take some time, and will also take some relationship building with the department to make sure that we're working together on it.
Okay. Did that answer your question? Thank you for that, Mr. Barber. Okay, given that, we will now put the motion forward. 16.5. All those in favour? All those against? 1. So, Gerard, you were at 4? Yeah. So, pass 5-4. Congratulations. Thank you. Now, moving on to 16.6, notice of motion for the Audit and Risk Committee. Councillor McNeish, is it true do you wish to move this forward?
Thanks to the staff who worked very hard on this.
Yeah. So you're not moving this motion. Okay. Being there no urgent business, no confidential items, just like to say that although it's been a long council meeting, it's been good to see us working together to come to some ideas collectively. We all have differences, and I think we should all go and have a drink and enjoy. But I will close this meeting now at 8:45, and thank everyone for your attendance.